All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Keenan O'Connell presiding.
Everyone may now be seated. This is the trial of Andrew Jackson. Counsels, are you ready to proceed? Prosecution, you may present your opening statement.
May it please the court.
You may begin.
The evidence will demonstrate that the presidency of Andrew Jackson had a negative impact on the United States. Andrew Jackson believed the white race was superior and his actions as president led to the displacement of Native and African Americans. In addition, his idea of ending corruption in the federal government led to the removal of many qualified government employees who were replaced with his friends and cronies. He disobeyed the United States Supreme Court, and in his quest for more control and power, he made decisions regardless that the other co-equal branches had decided. Andrew Jackson was a negative president.
May it please the court.
You may begin, Counselor.
The evidence will demonstrate that the presidency of Andrew Jackson had a positive impact on the United States. Andrew Jackson was the first non-establishment president and was a president of the people. He was a common man and drained the swamp by removing established corrupt government employees. In addition, he prevented the renegade state of South Carolina from leaving the Union. He also instituted economic reforms which led to paying off the national debt of the United States. Andrew Jackson was a positive president.
Prosecution, you may call your first witness.
The prosecution calls Alex Pantuso to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Did Mr. Jackson consolidate power and act as a king while in office?
Yes.
Please explain.
He refused to follow the Constitution and disobeyed a Supreme Court decision in which he seized Cherokee lands and riches and forcibly removed natives from their homelands without legal authority.
Order! Prosecution, you may call your second witness.
The prosecution calls Jackson Marshfelder to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Sure.
Did closing down the Bank of the United States cause an economic depression?
Yes.
How so?
It led to inflation, decreased revenue to the states, and economic uncertainty.
Defense, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes. Why did Jackson feel it was necessary to close the Bank of the United States?
He felt the U.S. bank became too powerful and would create economic harm to the United States. And the bank was a threat to national security because its stockholders were all foreign.
Thank you.
The prosecution calls Matthew Jordan to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Is Mr. Jackson a slave trader and slave owner?
Yes.
How did this help him?
He became wealthy selling and exporting slaves.
Thank you.
Defense, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes. Even though he was a slave owner, didn't he help prevent an early civil war?
Yes.
How?
He prevented South Carolina from seceding.
Prosecution may call your fourth witness.
The prosecution calls Jared Pryor to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Did Mr. Jackson sign the Indian Removal Act of 1830?
Yes, this removed many Native Americans from their homelands. Many of these Native Americans ended up dying on the Trail of Tears.
Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
Thank you, Counselor. Defense, you may call your first witness.
The defense calls Corey Anastasia to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Did Mr. Jackson clean up corruption?
When elected as the first non-establishment people's president, He drained the swamp and fired hundreds of possibly corrupt government employees.
How would he have labeled this?
Principle of rotation in office.
Thank you.
Prosecution, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes. Did he create the spoil system?
Yes.
Please explain.
Once elected, he fired hundreds of government workers even if they were good employees and hired his friends.
Thank you. Defense, you may call your second witness.
The defense calls Jack Dwalaby to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. How do the people view Mr. Jackson?
He did not come from a powerful family and was the first president that was for the people. Mr. Jackson was called Old Hickory because he was tough and carried out the will of the people.
Thank you. The defense rests.
Thank you, Counselor. Prosecution, I will hear your closing statement.
May it please the court.
You may begin, Counselor.
The evidence before this court demonstrates unequivocally that President Andrew Jackson was a negative president and had a disastrous impact upon the United States. Andrew Jackson was nicknamed Old Hickory because he was considered tough. There is nothing tough about a president who forcibly removes entire races of people against their will, leaving many to perish. This ethnic cleansing completely contradicts the morals and values we hold dearly in this great nation. Not only did Andrew Jackson own hundreds of slaves, but he enriched himself by selling them. His constant need for power created an economic depression and led to the removal of many hardworking and qualified employees of the federal government. Andrew Jackson was the 7th President of the United States, but because of his actions while in office, he should be seen more as a king, which this country fought so hard to do away with. I ask that based upon all of the evidence and testimony in this trial, that this honorable court find Andrew Jackson was a negative president.
Defense, I may now hear your closing statement.
The evidence before this court demonstrates unequivocally that the President Andrew Jackson was a positive president and had a great impact upon the United States. Andrew Jackson was the first president in American history to be seen as a common man, the people's president. Andrew Jackson drained the swamp and removed unqualified, inept employees of the federal government. He instituted economical reforms which included spending controls, the vetting of projects that were too expensive, and shutting down the National Bank in 1832. Andrew Jackson's economic vision led to the paying off of the National Bank and leaving the United States with a surplus. He is the only U.S. president to ever do so. Andrew Jackson was nicknamed Old Hickory because he was tough and determined to do the will of the people. When South Carolina threatened to break away from the United States, he promised the United States would use force to make sure that didn't happen. It was because of his toughness and tenacity that South Carolina backed down, which averted an earlier civil war. Although Andrew Jackson may have done some things that were controversial, he had the best interests of the common man and the United States guiding his decisions. I ask that based upon all of the evidence and testimony in this trial, that his honorable court find Andrew Jackson was a positive president.
Andrew sucks.
Oh man,
Order in the court! Based upon the evidence in this court, I find Andrew Jackson to be Everyone may be seated. Counselors, I'll take. Raise your right hand.
That is your left.
I'm dominating with my left.
Oh,
Sorry.
you're
No, I have my phone in this hand, so you couldn't see it.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth?
I can't do what this kid says.